groups and group coaching, and application of human psychology in coaching. So I will try to make you run through the dynamics of human growth and relationships, right? And let's see how much we can cover in detail. So let's first talk about psychology of children and adolescents. I'm a mother of an adolescent boy, and from when we were adolescents to till we became the parents of adolescents, one is hearing the same old one-liner. Oh, it's a stormy period of one's life. It's a very sticky period, right? Children go through this, children go through that, right? As an adolescent, I don't remember being much of a trouble to my parent, and my 14-year-old is a delight. He's a delight for the same reason that we are conscious parents, right? And we understand what this age and stage is all about. Dr. Dan Siegel is an authority on adolescent's brain and adolescence dynamics, right? So there are a few books. One is called as The Yes Brain Child. Another one is called as Mind Sight. These are two lovely books, which I would suggest all parents of adolescents and all to-be coaches to read if you really want to decode the adolescent brain, right? So when we look at development, there are many domains. We talk about physical, cognitive, and social-emotional domain. There is nothing much that we can do as parents, as adults, about the physical development because it unfolds with age, right? There is a lot being done, and rather I would say overdone, in the domain of cognitive development. Because of COVID, things are different. But, when I used to see parents ferrying children from one class to another, from one sport to another, from one hobby to another, school, this, that, performing, Olympiads, debates. Oh, so we are only reinforcing the head qualities in our children. We are only educating the head, the calculative, rational, logical part, right? So there will certainly be an imbalance because nobody is addressing the heart. When I say the heart, I'm talking about feelings, emotions, intuition, vision. Nobody's talking about that. So we raise our children, telling them to color within the line. And as adults, we ask them to think out of the box. I don't know how that dynamic works. As a professional, I don't get it, right? So it has to be holistic development. It has to be head, heart, and hands, right? So the completely ignored aspect of our growth, our development, or our children's growth and the younger generation's growth and development is socio-emotional development. And as Seema was talking about emotional intelligence, one of the most profound quotes that I've heard, comparison between intelligence and emotional intelligence, is that EQ is the price we have paid to have this, so-called genius and the gifted and intellectually advanced generation. So I don't doubt the cognitive ability of children nowadays. They are smart, they are bright. But what I'm concerned about as a parent, as a professional, is the softer side of them. Emotions, feelings, sentiments. And again, it was a health pandemic, all right. It has been a bigger mental health pandemic. Never before in my career I have had a client rush like this, where sometimes to tell people that I'm sorry, I'm not available. You'll have to wait for a few days. Our emotions during the pandemic were on steroids. Blown up fights, strangulated atmospheres, right? Oh my God. I have heard so much that happened during the pandemic within families and everywhere because we were not emotionally prepared for this, not at all. And all the masks they got off, and we became the real selves in front of our families. We all have gone through it, isn't it? So when we were talking about resilience, well, that is the social emotional aspect of ourselves, and it has been overseen for enough long. It's time it gets its due, right? If we really want a gentler and a more compassionate space, we got to give that aspect of our existence attention. And again, we are first biological beings and then later logical beings. And emotions is biology. Emotions is the language of the body. And we are completely deaf and we are completely blind to it. Rather, when you say someone that this one is touchy, this one is temperamental, right? This one is sensitive, I'm sure we are not complimenting anybody, isn't it? So emotions are always like villains, to be repressed, to be suppressed, to be denied, to be shamed. Well, again, just a gentle reminder, we cried, the first thing we did was crying when we were born. All the intellect, the knowledge, the general awareness, it came later. The first connect between a baby and the mother is an emotional skin-to-skin connect. It's comfort, contact comfort. It's all emotional. And we have been completely blind to it as for generations. And I call it a generational trauma. Okay, so this is the pattern of a newborn. We are all aware of it. Infant, then becomes a toddler, then becomes a child, and then becomes an adolescent, depending upon the age groups that are mentioned. Now, physical development refers to physical bodily changes, and it has a very predictable sequence, right? And cognitive or intellectual development has to do with knowledge, language, thought, reasoning, imagination, creativity, logic, all that. Social and emotional development is to do with actually, getting attuned to yourself. Very, very important. We got to know where do we stand emotionally, and that's what is emotional intelligence all about, right? And once you know, once you are literate, aware about your emotions, and you can use those emotions to your advantage and that of everybody else's advantage, that's emotional intelligence. I was having one conversation with my son today, and we were talking about Pearl Harbor, and we were talking about Hiroshima, Nagasaki, Afghanistan, 9/11, all those things, right? So he told me that when these atom bombs were discovered, so most of the scientists, even worth the brain and the general of the Allied forces, they all cried that what the heck we have created. And he also told me that in an incident, sometimes in 1970s, Russia actually caught some nuclear weapons or something on their radar, and they were just about to push that button, as a reaction to America's as a retaliation to the action taken by America. And then there was one man, he forgot the name, so I don't know the name, who restrained and convinced and persuaded the whole team that it's a technical glitch, it's not real. I was zonked. And he was correct. I was really zonked. Why I was zonked was that in that moment of crisis, he could first apply his mind in a logical manner to decipher that it's a technical glitch, this can't be true, and then look at the persuasive communication he would have used to tell everyone else in the team to restrain. Otherwise, as per his knowledge, a lot of damage would have been done in 1970s itself, and the world we are living in today would not have been the same. emotional intelligence. Yeah, getting a grip of our emotions, labeling our emotions, using them to ours and everybody else's advantage. Now we can only do that, and we can only pass that on to our children if we ourselves first believe in this concept that E and I both need, again, a genuine balance between the two. Either ways, either of two, when dominate us, we tend to take extreme decisions, right? Which generally we regret later on. If it is too calculative, then also, I mean, it would be for one person's advantage. And if it is too emotional, then again, it can't be something that is doing justice, or that cannot be the best solution to the problem, right? So when we are coaching children, we have to be sensitive to the emotional aspects. We have to be sensitive to the stage of development that the child is in, isn't it? The way you can speak to a 15, 16-year-old, certainly that's not how you can put your point across to someone who's 5 or 6 years old. So especially in therapy, we use art therapy to deal with children, right? And there are so many things that children cannot express. So we ask them to draw. We asked them to draw their families. We asked them to draw themselves. My PhD is in the area of therapeutic psychology, right? So I worked with children with behavioral problems. So one way to decode the problem was that because it had one big variable, parenting, associated with it. So what we did was we asked the children to draw their families, right? And when you draw something, when children especially draw something, they project their thoughts, their motives and emotions on that picture. Looking at the picture, there was so much we could decode about the family dynamics. Father, authoritative, XYZ absent. So when there was an authoritative father, father was much bigger than the rest of the family members, right? So there were families where father was sitting and everybody was standing around. Again, one could make out what is the family dynamics. There were cases where children drew the family, but they didn't draw themselves. And that was heart-wrenching. Why? Because the child did not consider himself or herself to be a part of the family. He was an unheard voice in the family. Yeah, he was invisible in the family. So you could decode so much. So similarly in coaching, if you have an opportunity to deal with children, art is a beautiful medium through which children can express themselves. But yes, you need to have the expertise and the competence to decode that art, to understand the core of the problem. Because again, I'll tell you something very technical. Sometimes certain things happen to children when the language competence has not yet developed, right? So I think Seema had put it in the beginning that either we store memories in terms of constructs or we store them in terms of visuals. So because the language aspect has not yet developed, so the child has constructed a memory about the event in terms of certain visuals. So he will never be able to express himself. If you ask him what kind of childhood is, a very happy childhood. Ask them to draw their childhood, you will be shocked sometimes, right? So games, art, it's one of the best assessment tool. And we use play therapy, we use performing art therapy. Again, my heart lies in a very new area that I've started working in lately, and that's trauma. Yeah, and again, I want you to expose in a very brief manner to the field of trauma. We always imagine and think about trauma to be worst things happening to people, rapes and molestations and emotional abuses and catastrophes and witnessing something violent, bloodshed. Yeah, that's one aspect of trauma. What was an eye-opener to me when I started reading and working in the field of trauma was that not just this kind of exposure is trauma, love denied, love needed, and love not reciprocated is also traumatic. And I'm again sharing this with you because we are talking about child development. We are talking about children coaching, right? So children are born with an innate need to connect. Again, this Western concept of making children sleep in separate cribs and they grow a bit, making them sleep in a separate room. Even the Western psychologists who are working in the field of attachment or working in the field of child development, they are revising this understanding. Children want contact comfort, right? In our indigenous, anywhere, the indigenous understanding, cultural understanding of child rearing, anywhere you look at the indigenous way of rearing children, you will see mother either hanging the child somewhere in front of her or back of her, holding her in the arms. Children have a definite innate need to connect, right? And we busy parents, because of our jobs, other roles, responsibilities, and aspirations, dreams, whatever, we deprive our children of that innate need sometimes, not because we want to, but because we are ignorant about that. So again, a very simple but a very earnest request to all of you: connect with your children. And how do we connect with our children? Very simple. Please give them undivided attention. Let no device hamper that eye-to-eye contact, which is a basic, authentic human need. Look at your children with very gentle and kind gaze. Give them a very gentle and a kind gaze, because if you are angry, if your gaze is angry, autocratic, you are building up a worldview in the child that it's a big bad world, right? So as parents, please be emotionally available to your child. As spouses, please be emotionally available to your spouse. As leaders, as team members, acknowledge, appreciate, and show affection to people. Just these three A's: acknowledgement, appreciation, and affection. That's what children need. That's what humans need. Please keep this bucket, the attention bucket and the acknowledgement, appreciation bucket, full. Your team members, your children, your spouse, nobody can have relational issues if we are little mindful about this need, intrinsic need, innate need that each of the human species they have. So certainly, I don't know how to coach children. You need to coach parents. I have never seen a troubling child. It always boils down to a parent who is a core source, or the core reason for the issue, right? I won't call it a problem. It's just that as a parent, because there's no manual, right? You have children and then you're left to yourself to raise them, correct? And you raise them in the manner that you have been raised, because that's the only exposure to parenting, correct? As parents, we do our level best, but we can only do the best we know, right? So parenting can be learned. That's the best news. And I'm very proud of the fact that I'm a conscious parent, because I've learned how to parent. I read books, I read articles, I practiced everything that the experts in the field had to say about parenting. And always remember, friends, parenting is not about the child. It's not about correcting children. Parenting is a conscious work in process where you are attuning yourself to the needs of the child. It might sound wacky to some people, but it's called the goodness of fit model. If your child is sensitive, you got to be cautious. How are you addressing that child? How you're giving feedback to your child, because it hurts harder to a sensitive child. Correct? So we need to attune ourselves to the needs of our children, and for that we have to be first of all sensitive to their needs. Correct? How do we become sensitive to their needs? By not looking at them from certain socio-cultural filters. I'll give you one example of a socio-cultural filter. Don't you think we assume that extroversion is a better trait than introversion? Just give me a thumbs up if you think what I'm saying is correct. Let's be honest. I always thought that way, that, if a child is extrovert, his journey into adulthood and then, professional, this thing, it'll be so much easier. Right? And so when your child is introvert, imagine how do you introduce your child, how you sometimes, you arm twist your child, tum baat nahi karte, tum namaste nahi karte, right? Guys, children are not the trophies to be displayed in drawing rooms. They are wildflowers. Let them blossom. Like in words of Khalil Gibran, we don't own them. They have just come via us. They chose us. Right? Let's not possess. So parenting is a learned skill. A happy parent raises happy child. Small problems, when not taken care, become big. Again, another insight observation that I would like to share with you. When we don't listen to the little stuff that children have to share with us, they don't share the big stuff when they grow up with us. So when children are in kindergarten, when they come back home, they are their chirpiest best. Mom, what happened today? What happened today? And we are like, okay, acha, go change your clothes, go keep the shoes in the place. Listen to your child then. I know most of us would have crossed that age by now. But the beauty of relationships is that we can always repair it. We can always start afresh by admitting to our child, hey, I was doing what I thought was correct, but today I learned something new. So I want to make some correction. I want to make some admission. I want to confess that there was something not okay. I'm going to correct it now onwards. Let's give our relationship a fresh chance. Right? So the best way to have a happy, healthy relationship, whether it's children, spouses, subordinates, colleagues, friends, get interested in other people's interest. That's what coaching is all about. Asking questions, open-ended questions, probing questions, non-directive questions. Isn't it? And what is our conditioning when it comes to parenting, therapy, coaching? Unless we get trained into it, we want a quick fix, isn't it? We want to suggest, we want to offer solutions, we want to help. No. A good coach, an effective parent, like Karthik brought it, resilience. How do you build up resilience? When you don't offer help when it is not required, and you allow the child to struggle, when you encourage children to stay with the problem for a longer period of time. That's how you build up resilience. And as parents, we just want to quickly suggest and give solutions and restrain. They can manage it, they can do it. Again, the worst thing that we do to our children is doing things for them which they are themselves capable of. Not done. Give them time, give them support, scaffolding. We treat yourself as a more knowledgeable partner. That's it. And give your inputs only when they are required. Our children will respect us more because there is less of bickering, let her the chick in the house, less of correction. And what else? What else does a human being want that they're just giving that space to be? So effective parenting, effective coaching helps young children begin to develop some of the personal skills that will aid them as they get older, including resilience. So I told you, how do we build up resilience? We build up resilience in our coaches, in our children, by bursting certain myths. One myth that I want to burst here is, we have always been reared to offer support. Correct? Give help. Be a good human being, right? Be pro-social. Be altruistic. We also need to train our children and our coaches in asking for help when required. It's very courageous, right? And then, as I shared earlier also, that we have always been told to repress our emotions. We have been blaming, naming, shaming emotions. We got to give space to emotions. One of the examples that I would like to share with you is the child is crying. Young child, 3, 4, 5-year-old child is crying. Or if the child is sad, right? I have heard many parents say that, go wipe your face first of all, go wash your face first of all, then I will talk to you. Thank you so much. If the child was capable of wiping the face and washing the face and managing that emotion, why would that child would have acted out? These are symptoms, friends. This acting out, this stubbornness, that inflexibility, rigidity, tantrums, they are symptoms that something is not okay inside, right? Give child space to express and try to get to the root of that. So, overcoming failure. Again, we are a very success-oriented society. What is failure? Anyone? What is your definition of failure?
I would say not coming to your expectations, your perceived expectations.
Lovely. Bang on. Karthik, Shiv, do you want to add something?
Nama put it perfectly.
Seema pretty much said the same thing,
Yes.
actually.
Exactly.
That was Seema.
I was
Okay,
about to
all
say
right.
the same thing.
Very good.
Namas.
That was
Nama,
Nama.
right? Yes, that
Nama,
was
Nama.
Nama. Yes, okay. She perfectly
So,
nailed it.
I swear, nailed it. So what is failure? When you expected something to happen, it didn't turn out that way. You said it's failure. Come on, it's just an alternative. It's just an alternative occurrence. Right? And again, so much of noise around that. That's how India doesn't have very many entrepreneurs. That's how India doesn't have so many Nobel laureates, because when you have to do something new, well, not getting there in the first time is a very natural developmental trajectory. Correct? And here, if a child doesn't crack a particular exam in a particular year and he wants to give one more shot to it, we call it a gap year. And throughout, it reflects on our CVs and we have to explain it. In every interview, what were you doing then? Damn it, I was preparing for that exam. There is no concept called moratorium here, right? There is no concept of exploring options here. It's only foreclosure. I love that line from Three Idiots, that 10-10 I was born and 10-11 it was decided I'm going to be an engineer. Thank you so much. Right, and we're talking about freedom of will and we're talking about space and all that, but it has to be. It has to be. We are cruel, I tell you. We're very cruel in our relationships. And despite the fact that we want to give our best and do our best, but see what we end up at. So when you allow failure, right, you're giving the child the confidence to stand up, So in Chinese, they say, fall 7, rise 8. correct? So there is so much of celebration. The people surround people when they succeed. My concern is, do you stand by someone who has had a setback? You quietly sit by that person who is going through the grief of not being an achiever at that moment. That's the role of a parent and a coach. Equanimity. So when we give those environments, those spaces, when we allow children to fail, when we allow them to experiment, when we allow them to dirty their clothes, get dirty, right, dirty their hands, we get creative problem solvers. That's how you build up a society which is creative. Again, continuing that conversation that my son and I we were having, how Japan, after those two huge setbacks of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, there was a complete transformation probably in the collective consciousness of that country. And it is one of the best countries to live in. The concept of ikigai, which we have got from Japan, again, it's another beautiful book which I would recommend all of you to read. Right, so how they are balancing out things, their diets, their professions. And Tokyo, one of my clients, she lived in Japan, she had a stint in Japan, one of the most thickly, densely populated cities in the world. And she says, ma'am, it doesn't feel so. There's so much of greenery. How, they're gently balancing nature with development. Lovely lessons to be learned. I wish we follow that model, the education model, where children don't have tests. They are cleaners, they're cleaning their schools, and they're learning basic life skills in their school for the first formative 4-5 years of their life.
Thanks to the Britishers, we lost all that.
We lost all.
It was once upon a time, that's the kind of education system we had. The Gurukuls were all providing that to us. We lost all that, uprooted completely.
I remember in Gurukul also we had to give tests.
Yes, and when Jesus said, Lord, don't put me to test, we are lesser mortals. We are naturally scared. I don't think we are scared of tests. We are scared of the consequences of the test, and then we are scared of the consequences of the consequences of the test. Right, so again, trauma.
The recent meme which I read was, even in the school, only a teacher who comes teaches only one subject. Then why should children read all the subjects?
Imagine. This is unjustified, completely unjustified. Okay, so an open, curious approach where we allow questions, where we encourage curiosity. I think that's an utopian world where, which is a dream, for probably all of us. So probably again, at the policy level, probably we can't do anything, but home is a place that can be dealt with. That's the beauty. So psychology always says charity begins from home. So let's at least convert our homes into such spaces where all these variables are blooming, right? And I think you will all agree with me, those of you who are parents, we may fail as anyone, but we don't want to fail as parents, right? Because we are responsible for another life. Let's do justice with it, right? So let's keep aside our egos, our aspirations, our dreams, and just let it be. Let the children be. That's it. Bas itna hi. That's it. Okay, now I'm not going to get into the details of this theory. I again recommend kindly read this theory, Erickson's theory, a beautiful theory which covers the whole lifespan. Because if I get into the details of it, we would need 45 minutes, and there are more important things which I would like to touch upon today. And this is something you can actually read and cover. So this theory starts with babyhood, ends at death. So this theory is a beautiful theory which unfolds life right from womb to tomb, talking about how the significant others in our life at a particular stage are responsible for building up our psychological strength, right? I'll just give you a kind of a general idea so that you can fit the whole theory into that frame. When we're talking about an infant, right, the significant other is mother. If the infant's physiological needs are met, if the baby is fed, if changed when dirty, picked up and consoled when cry, right, we build up a psychological strength in the child which is called as trust, which means that the baby develops this construct in his or her head that whenever I would need someone, there would be someone to warmly respond to that need. And that becomes the worldview of the child. However, if the significant other is missing, maybe the baby is being raised in a foster home or an orphanage, or parents are busy, it's a neglected kind of a household. So obviously, the child needs are not met. So children develop a worldview which is mistrust. That is, I have to fend for myself. I won't have people around me when I need them the most. And this is one of the most terrible things that can happen to children, to have this feeling of being empty and lonely when they need adults around them, because children are born helpless. Human babies, they need parents for a very long period of their life. Let's be available to them. So please go through this. So this is, early childhood, when they are making early connections with their peer. So this is early childhood when children want to do a lot of things on their own, right? Then is preschool, when there is connections between peer group. Now, if a child is not able to strike friendship, right, and he's not able to take that initiative, he's left out, isn't it? So peer relationships are very important. This is school age, when children need to be industrious, they need to be taking interest in a lot of different activities, and we got to be supporting them again as teachers and parents in whichever field they desire to excel. If that doesn't happen, inferiority, backbenchers, you lose interest in padai, in school, and everything else. Adolescence, that's the time when identity builds up. You develop your own individual perspective about the world. And if this doesn't happen, there is confusion. Why do you think we have a term called midlife crisis? Because in India, you're supposed to choose a career at an age when you're legally not even allowed to buy alcohol. You can't vote, but please decide. Non-medical, medical, commerce, humanities. What pressure, right? So you then pick up something because everybody else is doing it, or your bua's son is doing that, or your chacha's daughter is doing that, right? There's conformity. And ultimately at 40, 41, when you actually come to terms with life, you're like, damn, what have I done for 4 decades of my life? I'm not enjoying what I'm doing. I'm looking for transition. So we have transitional coaches, and there is more employment and more work for people like you and me. Next is adulthood, getting married, having relationships, committed relationships. If not, then isolation, when you choose not to get into a committed relationship. That's a matter of choice. And interestingly, 40 to 65 years of our life is the most productive, most generative period of our life. Why? Because by this time, a lot of teeny-weeny things have been taken care of. If you get married at the right age, children are adolescents on their own. So many of us are going through that emptiness thing, but then you come to terms with life, okay, all sorted, right? What am I going to do with myself? So this is the time a lot of people pick up, especially women. A lot of women would pick up threads from where they had left because they got married, they had children, right? So some women get into, get re-education, they get re-employed, they explore hobbies and passion, right? And even with men, by the time you're 40 to 65, you're already in the top management. If you have had a good stint in your career, you have accumulated some money and wealth, right? You're active in clubs, organizations, you're doing more than, just that 9 to 5 thing by this time, because you have more clarity about life. And by 65, when you retire, again, that's a social role of old age that we are expected to play. We talk about gray power now, right? So life begins at 60 for so many people because so far you were doing things because there were compulsions, right? So there are people who are exploring a lot of things, traveling, passions, hobbies, re-employment into certain phases and areas that they could not do it before because you didn't know what was happening before, right? So a lot of people are making a lot of new conscious choices at the age of 65. And this is the time when you look back at your life. And if you think that you did what you wanted to and you did not do things that you didn't want to, obviously you have a sense of ego integrity. You know, it's a life well spent. But unfortunately, it doesn't happen that way. Yeah, you have regrets, but life doesn't have a rewind button, right? So it's so important that we live each day by making certain conscious choices. And also, you know, certain times when things don't go the way we desire or we can't play our choice, let's accept things gracefully so that, you know, we don't want to have this feeling of despair by the time it's time to say wind up our active lives. Correct? So this is Erickson's theory. I again recommend, please read it from the internet and read it in detail. Very, very insightful. And we also get to know what age of life we are in, what is important for us, what age of life our significant others are, our parents, our children, right? And what's the best way to deal with them at the given moment, which would have very nourishing impact on our relationships.
Hi class, welcome to our discussion of alkyne.
I'm just skipping.
Hi class, welcome.
All this because it's just reinforcing the concepts that I have shared with you. We still have an hour. Okay. Talking about psychology of couplehood. How many of you desire to explore this realm of relationship coaching? Anybody who's very clear that this is going to be my domain?
I may try because I'm already a relationship counselor, so I'll mix coaching and counseling.
Okay.
And
All right.
obviously we have had a lot of cases during last 1.5 years, so I see a lot of scope of business there. So, yeah.
Yes, you are right.
And I'm also doing Dan thinking from business perspective. I have seen lot many things. I've been a part of such counseling. I went through a heavy hardship, you know, a very well planned hardship in my life. I would like to transfer lives in the right direction. So I'm on that track. So probably with your guidance, I might get more, get fine tuned further.
I'm just opening the windows and I'm just showing you all the cards. So, and let's connect all of us. Let's connect on LinkedIn. I am there. It is a great idea to be a community of learners and, you know, to be catalysts of each other's growth. Also, I'll share my email ID and number at the end of it. And if you feel that I could be of any help to any one of you, please feel free to contact. I would be more than happy to help. Yeah.
So
okay.
Relationship counts. Clarification. Relationship. Lakshmi, you're not coming up clearly.
You're not audible.
Can't hear you.
You're not audible.
You are able to hear me now?
Better.
A lot of cluttering is there. Like some additional noise is coming. Electronic noise. So relationship counseling and relationship coaching. So I'm already doing relationship counseling. So which is like providing lot of techniques, lot of assignments, and lot of all those subconscious mind records elimination. That I'm doing. How, as a coach, relationship coach, we can supersede
this counseling part. We cannot able to provide any solution, right? As a coach, when we are doing a relationship coaching, it's very, very tough to get to hear from their mouth. But if it is on the counseling mode, have the liberty to make them aware of few techniques. But of course, we can do as a kind of an assessment. That's what I'm hearing from Hemant and all those. But still, we don't have the freedom of providing a little bit of our thought process, because we should not provide our solution. So what is your take?
Very important. Yes. So basically, coaching is a whole process of discovery. Correct. And as coaches, we need to master the art of asking questions. If there was a single line definition I were to devise of coaching, it's about mastering the art of asking questions and restraining from giving solutions and suggestions and that kind of thing, right? And what kind of questions? And then, if you Google it, you will get ample websites telling you 70 questions, 100 questions, right? So basically, coaching is first rapport building, right? Second, setting up goals where we are partners in achieving those goals. Third, action plan. Fourth, review, feedback, right? And fifth, ultimate goal of a coach is to become redundant. Yes? Yeah. Ultimately, you have empowered that person so much that now he or she doesn't need you, and you're great friends and you're collaborators. That's the ultimate goal of parenting also, in any power position. Leadership. What is the ultimate goal of leadership? Becoming redundant. You empower the other person so much that now they only call up and tell you, see, this is where I've reached. So this is what I'm doing, right? Thank you so much for the tools and the tips. Okay. Talking about relationships, I can't go much into the deep dynamics of it, If we can study the communication pattern between partners, because this part of coaching is more about couple coaching, we can just see the communication pattern. And if we can just work on the communication pattern of the couple, we can really sort out a lot of things for them, right? So on the surface, it's conflict pattern, conversation, or what is called as communication pattern, and being sensitizing them to one another's needs. That's very, very important. So when two people, they decide to get into a formal relationship, different backgrounds, different socioeconomic statuses, different expectations, so much and so forth, right? And then suddenly, you got to live your life with this, especially if it's a arranged marriage, with this stranger to whom you have, you know very limited about it. And also, even in love marriages, a lot of discoveries happen, isn't it? A lot of things you discover after getting married, right? So it sometimes become even difficult to deal with those sudden discoveries and sudden things that let themselves out, because you had a very different schema and a very different picture of this person in your head when you were in courtship and when you're in a premarital relationship, right? So
do you ever think about why you're more
lot of our relationships with our spouses, they go back to our attachment style. So that's why I said, childhood, the early childhood experiences, for the child to know that there is an adult who is his safe space. It's called secure attachment. And anyone who has been raised with that trust kind of a development, ego strength, they have very fulfilling later life relationships. However, if we have had troubled childhoods in terms of neglecting parents, rejecting parents, confused parents, and broken households, it has a very strong reflection on our adult relationships. So again, 4 attachment styles for your understanding and their impact on our adult relationships. Let's have a look.
Do you ever think about why you're more inclined to attract or be attracted to certain types of people? Or why the people you've dated in the past weren't as compatible with you as you thought? Love involves constant choice, commitment, and work, which all demand an intuitive understanding both of your partner and of yourself. One useful piece of information is learning about you and your partner's attachment styles. The intent.
Again, I would strongly recommend all of you to reach about attachment styles. There are 2-3 psychologists. One is Bowlby, Bowlby. Please read about Bowlby's work. And another is Eisenworth, Aeisen. Either it's Eisenweig or Eisenworth, Sienweig, right? So please check it out. I'm little tricky name. So these are the 2 people. So Eisenweig, she has done work in the area of what is called as a strange situation test, right? Very interesting experiment. Do read about it. Strange situation test. And Bowlby has given us a theory of attachment and you know, from the evolutionary perspective. So all relationship coaches, you need to have these 2 informations in place, and then the next, of course, is the attachment style.
The intent of learning about attachment styles isn't to box love up neatly into categories, nor does it mean you're stuck with one attachment style forever. In fact, it's important to note that as time goes on, your attachment style can change from the way you evolve as a lover. If things have become fragile between you and your partner, realize that this is your chance to grow. Here are the 4 attachment styles in love. Number 1, secure. When you have a secure attachment style, you have a great advantage in love. You feel comfortable going to your partner when something is off, and in return, you allow your partner absolute freedom. People with a secure attachment style tend to have honest, open, and equal relationships where both partners can thrive and grow together at a healthy pace. They understand how to merge together to form a stable ground they can stand and operate on. This probably sounds too good to be true, but security is not to be confused with perfection. People with a secure attachment style experience conflict and bad days just like any other couple. But what sets them apart is their higher emotional intelligence that helps them communicate their feelings effectively and their ability to problem solve, rather than attacking their partners. Essentially, they're highly resilient individuals who understand how to move past obstacles with great care and self-awareness.
Okay. So before we move on to the next one, it's never that people who have done well in their lives, who have their relationships sorted, did not have problems. In words of Simon Sinek, one of the very influential thought leaders of our times, he's done a lot of, written very interesting books on leadership. He says that they have the capacity to what is called as self-soothe, right? So things would be tough, times would be difficult, but people who are resilient, right? People who are emotionally intelligent, they have the tools to first soothe themselves, right? Not getting aroused, not getting too jittery, not getting too nervous, right? They know how to deal with their inner selves when such situations arise. And then they move on to problem-focused coping, right? And where does it come from? A lot of it comes from our early childhood experiences. If we have been raised in a household where people get anxious, where parents get nervous, where they get angry, where they shut down when problems happen in relationships and in life, that's what we learn, correct? And, you know, I feel that we all are very, very lucky because it's a very good time to be and to a very good time to grow. Isn't it? Whatever area we want to excel in, there are courses available, there are books available, there are resources available. All we need is to read, imbibe, and execute that. Correct? So same goes for secure attachment. So if you've been raised in households where parents were available, they were emotionally present, right? And the house was a safe place for us to vent out our emotions, and we have been given the tools to deal with their emotions, we actually grow up into adults who would know how to resolve conflicts, how to manage relationship problems or any such issues that grow in a very healthy manner, respecting other person's identity choices, and at the same time expressing our needs to our partner. So I said two things: expressing our needs to our partner and being sensitive to the needs of our partner is actually basic recipe to happy partnerships, right? Okay, now we move on to the style number 2. The cursor is lost. Yes, I found it. Here.
Number 2, anxious, preoccupied. People with an anxious, preoccupied attachment style tend to romanticize love because it's easier for them to form a fantasy bond with someone instead of something based off a reality. They are often attracted to partners they can save, or in some cases, those who can save them. People who have an anxious, preoccupied attachment style can be demanding, obsessive, and clingy. They're prone to overanalyzing situations, having mood swings, and often mistake turbulent relationships for passion. They can struggle from insecurities, low self-esteem, and establishing a strong sense of self because they grew up without healthy boundaries and little to no guidance on nurturing their individuality. Number 3, dismissive, avoidant.
Okay, before moving on to dismissive one, so when somebody has an anxious demeanor, obviously, as a child, some basic needs of security, love, safety were not met. So what they are looking for in their partner is someone who can, be that Prince Charming, right? Who can really, that typical Cinderella and those fairy tale prince is what the women are looking at, and what the men are also looking at as a comforting partner, right? So sometimes they get very demanding because their idea of love partnership is to be protected, and because they are so insecure. Okay, so they can be very cynical. They can be very difficult partners. They would be trust deficits, right? And they could be I need you and I don't need you type of a condition, of a situation in these partnerships and in these marriages, right? So it goes back to, again, whether the initial security bond with the parent was that of a healthy one or an unhealthy one. Third one.
People with a dismissive, avoidant attachment style tend to be emotionally distant in relationships. They come across as self-sufficient, independent, and can avoid true intimacy. Although space is essential for two people to breathe and be themselves in any relationship, people with a dismissive, avoidant attachment style can seek it more frequently to push themselves away from being vulnerable with their partner. If at any point their partner threatens to leave them, they have the ability to shut their emotions down and pretend like they don't care. But extreme independence is an illusion because humans need connection in order to survive. As a result, people with an avoidant, dismissive attachment style have very few close relationships with others. Number 4, fearful.
Yes. So children who have suffered neglect and rejection in their childhood, their only way out to remain sane is to avoid relationship, because unfortunately, relationship has been the source of their greatest suffering. Right? So imagine the conflict in this person. You have this innate need to be connected, but you are so but the construct about connection is so toxic that despite the fact that you desire to have intimate relationship, you can't create one, and you choose to remain distant because your intimate relationships, your significant others have given you a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, so you shut down. So we may have partners who are not very expressive, right? Who completely cocoon up when things don't go well in relationships. They would always need their space. So the beauty of understanding attachment style is that you become more sensitive to your partner and you understand why this person is behaving the way he or she is behaving. You understand the root cause. Right? So if your partner is someone who shuts down, creates distance, right? Give them that space for a little while, but then be the first one to knock the door and say, do you need a cup of tea or coffee? I'm going to make some for myself. Because the initiation is not going to come from that side, right? That's one thing. And second thing, don't expect your partner to initiate. It won't happen, right? So that's what, one would say, why should I always do it? Correct. Because the relationship is more important than why I should do it. That's my answer to that. So again, it has been very insightful for me as a person and a professional to know how attachment styles can create relational issues, right? And how being sensitive to the history, the childhood, we can resolve a lot of issues as adults. Okay, so here we go, and we listen to the last.
Avoidant. People with a fearful avoidant attachment style experience a delicate mixture, fearing being both too close or too distant from their lover. They can be unpredictable and are often overwhelmed by their own emotions. They understand they have to approach others in order to find love, but when people get too close to them, they often hurt them. They fear being abandoned, but struggle with being confident in their partner and relying on them. They face a lot of inner conflict between wanting intimacy and resisting it. As a result, they usually experience many highs and lows in relationships, cling to their partners when they feel rejected, and if not careful, can end up in abusive relationships. Similar to the dismissive avoidant attachment style, these individuals have very few close relationships with others. Accepting what your attachment style is and recognizing the work that comes with it can be life-changing and powerful. And we hope that this information can teach you to become more self-aware and help you become a better lover. Which attachment love style do you resonate with, and how has it affected your relationships? Please share your thoughts with us.
Yes, reflections. Anybody?
Reflection is you need a good attachment.
So,
Sorry?
You need to have a good attachment if you want to
Secure
be
attachment.
Yeah.
may I make an observation?
Please.
Yeah. Because nobody is perfect. So while we know what is right, but your inner the upbringing, as you rightly mentioned a number of times, we can't change that now. How at the different stages of life we learn just by observing others, or by always reminding yourself of the consequences of not being a better wife, a better parent. How do you really turn to be a better self? Well, people tell you do EI, But emotional intelligence also is while partly it's learned skills, but partly also your own behavior pattern also influences. In corporate, I've seen number of years, I've seen we want to be a good boss, but you realize that you end up imposing your thoughts sometimes, even though you don't like it.
Correct, correct. Because, you know, we are creatures of habits. So thank you for asking that question, Mr. Mahapatra. How I look at it is that we first, the 3 A's.
Yeah.
We first need to be aware, then we need
Yes.
to accept, and then we need to take action.
Aware.
Awareness, acknowledgement, and action.
Hmm.
We can't be lying to ourselves, right? We got to understand what is our pattern, our attachment pattern, right? What are our insecurities?
That, yeah.
Isn't it? And then, you know, once, because that's what I said, that a coach has to have a very sorted head over the shoulders.
That's right.
And what is this sorted head all about? It's all about knowing oneself, you know, completely.
Yeah.
And then again, you can't do it overnight. There is no magic wand, right?
Do you need somebody to show mirror to you? Do you need? Yeah.
Yes, it gets easier. It gets easier because when you're seeking help in this particular domain, you know, somebody can be more objective. It's very difficult, Mr. Mahapatra, to be able to accept that, you know, I have this issue. You know, we will try our level best to justify, rationalize, explain to ourselves, no, this is not a problem. I can't be a problem, right? So when we seek help from outside, this person has a third person perspective to our personality, is able to give us a more objective understanding or objective reflection of our own selves. What we need to be doing there is be very accepting, you know, be very open to that feedback. True. Right? And then, of course, the next step is the action pattern, like the strategies, what is to be done, and executing that strategies, taking a feedback. As a coach, you have to be reviewing and giving feedback at a very, very, very frequent pace. That's how the other person, like, look at GPS, you know, every turn it tells you, turn left and turn right. And then another beauty of GPS is, this is something we got to learn as coaches, it doesn't twist your ears when you take a wrong turn. And it tries to find a way out, you know, the most effective way through that route. It never tells you, you have made a mistake. No, that I have never heard the GPS say that. All that it tells, all that it tells you is take a U-turn. Yeah, so as a coach, please tell your coach, hey, take a U-turn. That's easier, right? You want to go this way, go, but this is going to take longer. You might get stuck in traffic. Your choice. Correct?
Like showing the mirror, actually, maybe.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And we have that GPS in us. We just got to be in touch with that. After, you know, this stage of having coaches, having buddy coaches, there will come a time when you have that relationship with your own self that, you know, you never deny, and you respectfully accept whoever you are. And you're okay with being that, and you don't take things personally. But there are times when you take things personally, and you start working on that. So again, you know, gentle balance between when not to take things personally and just let it be, and when actually to take things personally and say, yes, this is a blind spot. I got to work. This is gap. I need to fill this up.
We need to practice what you preach. They tell a walk the talk.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Very easy to advise other people.
True. You said that.
Thank you.
Right. So I think that's my answer to your question.
Thanks.
Yes. Any other reflection? Any other?
Yeah, hi.
Yes, Anupama.
Yeah. So what I observed doubt is that is it that
attract or be attracted?
Sorry. Just give me 1 second, Anupama. I'll just go to the next slide because I'm just fiddling with it time and again. Please. Sorry for that interruption.
It's okay. It's okay. So what I felt is that can a person be a little bit of all the four styles? Is what I said.
Yes, it's never cubby holes that we fit into as, right? We can even switch between attachment styles.
Right. Okay.
At times. Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, let's move on to parenting now. We have already touched.
I have something. I don't know if it's a hypothetical situation. What if both parties in the couple have that issue? Then who would take the initiative?
So if the relationship is more important to them, they will seek help, right? And then as a coach or a therapist, you got to see the first step is psychoeducation, isn't it? When I read about all this, I was more aware as an individual. When you're more aware as an individual, you're more accepting of other people's, and you're more accepting of individual differences, right? You respect others' opinions, may not accept others' opinions, right? So I think the best thing is awareness. Psychoeducation, we call it technically. So when we expose people to look, these alternatives, these possibilities exist. It's not a fault. It's a consequence of what you have gone through, right? And now you decide what's going to be your road ahead. Do you really want to resolve it and want to have a more peaceful cohabitation between the two of you, right? Or you want to, gently call it quits and part ways and live separately. So Anupama, that's a choice that obviously the couples can only make, right? So I'm happy that we are having dialogues around this. We're having conversations around this. These things are being talked about openly now. And it's not just remaining confined to the textbooks and the academic circles of psychology.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Can I add to that?
Please. Yes.
Yeah. So I feel the one who is more aware of this situation, like now we know that, okay, these are the type of problems and this is my type, this is the other person's type. So if we are aware, then obviously we can take the step.
Totally. Step one is awareness. But Anupama is also right in saying that you are aware, you are receptive, you want to work on it. I do not know how your partner takes it, right? But if love is to win, so I'm sure, both the partners will somewhere have the consensus that let's try to resolve it. Let's give it another chance, right? So I mean, I always say that the fact that a couple has decided to visit a therapist or a coach is such a huge hope for the therapist or the coach, that they are here because they can see the problem and they can see that they can't resolve it on their own and they are seeking professional help, means they want to work through it, right? So
right.
I think that's a great hope for a professional when somebody walks in to the office and narrates the problem, ask questions around that. So the first, I would say, resolution to the problem is that somebody is aware that the problem exists, correct? Now, it's up to us as professionals how we unfold that path and how convenient we make it to our clients and, coaches to actually work on that journey. That's our skill, that's our competence, and that's something we all need to build up. Okay, yes, talking about parenting. So Piaget has given us a beautiful theory again of cognitive development. So Piaget has talked about age appropriate cognitive growth that happen in children at certain junctions of their lives. So we all know What a child at 12 can do, he couldn't have done when he was 2. And what you are capable of doing at 22, obviously, you couldn't have done it at the age of 12, because we say, you're not mature enough. So cognitive maturity has to do with competences, skill, constructs that gradually unfold by virtue of nature and nurture. Isn't it? So biologically also we are growing, and the exposure bit of it, when they both complement each other, what we get is a child who is blooming as per the age appropriate milestone. So it's a stage theory where exposure allows child to grow, to bloom, through self-discovery, through when we talk about constructivism, right? So this theory again says, just give children the desired exposure and they would construct. They are agents of their own growth and their own development, right? Then again, you don't have to, you can be a facilitator of their growth, but you don't have to be a guard, right? You can be a guide, but not a guard. Automatically, development will unfold on its own. Okay, so happiness and confidence are two most precious gifts parents can give to their children to manage difficulties in their life. I firmly believe in that. There are two P's of parenting: patience and persistence. Correct? So as Mr. Mahapatra said, now you got to walk the talk. So you have to be very persistent. You can't be getting up yourself at 8:30 and expecting your children to be up at 6. Not possible. You can't yourself be on the machines, on the digital stuff, gadgets throughout the day and expecting your children to have digital detox time. Not possible, right? So we have to walk the talk. So persistence, and then it can't happen overnight. You have to have a lot of patience. So I remember when I was introducing my son, small, to brushing his teeth at night, it would have taken me months. There was so much resistance, right? So we would play Barney songs, we would sing, I would brush myself. And then ultimately, obviously, it has become a habit now, right? So we can't give up. We can't give up as parents, as partners, right? And love has to prevail. There's the strongest force in the universe. The highest frequency on which we can operate is frequency of love. And love is such frequency that you can actually pull the other person up, and it has the power to make the other one resonate to that frequency. That's the power of love. Okay, talking about again, yeah. So when we talk about coaching of emotions, relationship psychology focuses specifically on coaching young people for emotional, social, and well-being confidence, right? And how do we develop this confidence in children is by showing confidence in their abilities and their capacities, right? By allowing them to fail. There's a beautiful story called the spilled milk. We all know children are clumsy. They have butterfingers, right? So every child, somewhere or the other, is going to drop a glass of milk, a cup of water here and there. And then we know the noise that gets created in a house. You've spilled it, you have butterfingers, you are clumsy, you are this, that, and goes to becoming incompetent and not doing anything worthwhile in life, right? Whereas the spilled milk is a situation, is a time for strength building, for building solution orientation, right? So there are two words that we use and we want our children to use a lot, looking at the pragmatics of language: thank you and please. I want all of you to add one more word to your vocabulary, and that is, it's okay. Right? And if I expand it into a sentence, it is, it's okay not to be okay. Say, so there is a lot of bickering, yelling going on in your house. I'm just taking an example of spouses. Your spouse telling you, ye nahi kiya, you haven't done this, you haven't done this, you haven't got that, you didn't buy that. You can very easily diffuse this volatile situation by saying, darling, it's okay to be not okay sometimes. Right? Similarly, we have to teach our children, it's okay to be not okay sometimes. Coming back to spilled milk. So, okay, it is spilled, it's gone, right? The next step is to tell the child, it's okay, doesn't matter. Let's go and get the mop. So if the child is small, let's go get the mop. I'll tell you how to clean the spilled milk. Right? It happens once, it happens twice, it happens thrice. Next time a situation like that happens, the child knows what is to be done. Isn't it? If something has gone wrong, what's the point yelling? What's the point making so much hype about it? Let's put it back to order, guys. Let's get to work. And when that happens, there are so many messages, there are so many life skills that we give to our children, right? One major life lesson is, when things go wrong, you don't have to be nervous. You don't have to be angsty. You just have to look for a solution. That's it. For me, when I read this, it was an aha moment, right? So every time a mistake happens, every time something not goes the way we thought it would, it's a time for a conversation, and it's time to apply solution orientation, right? So that's how we build up confident, happy children. Why? Because they know there's no reason to be anxious. Two, they are confident because they know what is to be done in this particular situation. They are better emotional regulators, correct? And your empathy and your guidance is going to go such a long way in making a healthy adult. I always say this. It's so easy to rear healthy children than mending broken adults, because I deal with a lot of broken adults. It's difficult, right? And sometimes, you know, husbands and wives, spouses, well, we are not trained to be rehabilitation centers, isn't it? We don't know ourselves what is to be done. And the situation is so overwhelming that, I mean, we are actually drowned in that situation, and we are drowned in that emotion, right? So, yeah, simple. I either train people to be effective parents and train them to be cooperative partners, isn't it? Or deal with the mess that's happening in our society. You know, there's no other way around, right? Okay. Now let's look at types of parenting. There are 4 types of parenting. Again, 2 things. Please remember, when I talked about patience and persistence, right? Please add 2 more things to that. One is warmth and responsiveness, and another one is structure, discipline. If a household has structure, if there are routines, if there are certain ground rules in a particular house, I don't see why children are not disciplined, why children do not grow up to be emotionally regulated adults. Along with another ingredient called emotional presence, warmth, and responsiveness. Right? So you're available to the child at the time of their acting out, their meltdowns, their emotional problems, issues, difficulties, concerns. You don't give them advices, you don't criticize them, you don't read sermons to them, you don't give moral lectures to them. No, big no. You just listen empathetically. Right? And you ask a question. Is there any way I can help you in that? You don't become critical. You don't become judgmental. So, you discovered 2 cigarettes from the pockets of your son. Oh, can you imagine the bombarding, the firework that can happen? The question that you need to ask is, what happened that you had to try this? I didn't puch to lo, just ask. Would be a friend's cigarettes, and you were just, helping someone out. Or what is it that is going on in the life of the child, that the child is so stressed that he had to take this route? Sensitivity, emotional availability, warmth, responsiveness. But at the same time, structure, routines, ground rules. So when you have there is a typing mistake here. When there is high demand and high response, it's authoritarian parenting. These children, they know their boundaries. These children, they are disciplined. They know there is a structure in the house, in the society. There are rules to be followed. And at the same time, because the parent is responsive, please make this correction. It's not low here, it's high. And when the child knows that, my parent is available to me, I'm going to be heard, I'm going to be seen, I'm being valued as an individual, right? The child is very high on confidence, high emotional regulation, high achievement. When there is only high demand and low responsiveness, right? So the parent is strict, correct? Strict disciplinarian. So here are the children who grow up to become very submissive, underconfident, voiceless adults. They can't stand up for themselves because nobody heard them. Nobody was available to them when they needed an adult to guide them, to listen to them, to support them, to give them some kind of security. Nobody was there. So imagine the adult they would become. Permissive parents. That's what a lot of our generation parents are becoming. Right? Because we are raising children with a sense of entitlement, right? We all think that, we have brought some geniuses from another world, right? And they are gifts to the society that we are giving to the society, right? So what is happening is, there's a mistake here. Permissive parent. They are very low on demand, right? I'm correcting. Please stay tuned. Permissive parent is very low on demand. There are no rules in the house. Anybody can get up anytime. Anybody can sleep anytime. Children are having brushing their teeth at 12 o'clock, having their breakfast at 2 o'clock, having late night parties. There are no ground rules in the house whatsoever. And they are high on responsiveness. Right? Very
below
cuddly.
both the things. So sorry to interrupt. So below both the things, we have to interchange that high and low.
So in permissive, no demand from the child, low, right? And high response. You are correct. Yes, we have to switch.
Okay. So authoritarian and authoritative, it is like high demand, low response, and permissive and uninvolved. In both the way, low demand and high response. So it is kind of a surrendering.
Yeah. Right. So your children are driving you through their nose, through your nose, right? And there is no authority in the house. And the last is the worst kind. Last were uninvolved. Both are low here. Low demand, low response. Neither do you demand, nor do you're absent. It is vacant parenting, empty parenting. So uninvolved children would grow up to become delinquents. They have nobody to go back to. There are no rules, there are no norms, there are no discipline. They don't know what's right, what's not, what's effective, what's not, what's desirable, what's not. They have no idea about that. Correct? So the most effective style of parenting is to be high on demand and high on response. Please, this yellow block, make the correction. High demand, high response. Have a structure in the house, have some ground rules in the house, have some norms that everyone follows in the house, and at the same time, be emotionally available to the children. Any reflections, anyone?
Yeah, sorry, I will share my experience. Maybe which window it is fitting, and just let us see where it is fitting. So normally I will not tell my son, okay, you have to do this, you have to do that. So what I transformed myself is, say for example, he has to sit down and eat. That is what the culture in our home, like both the legs crossed. We are not having any dining table in our house. I will tell them, rather than telling him, hey, you have to sit in an authoritative mode, I will tell them kind of just information. If you sit both the legs folded, and if you observe, if you like eating when you are having hungry, only at that time if you eat, this is good. You do it whatever you want. Then he will really ask me, hey, what is the good thing?
In this video, we're
So
going to continue
where
our
this is
discussion
coming,
of developmental
the bottom
or
of
child
it is
psychology.
high demand and high this thing. So I'm not figuring where this behavior is coming in picture. I'm sure that it is not at the top. I think it is in between now. So can you go to the previous?
I'll go back, yes.
So it is not permissive or it is not uninvolved. So got my question. So I'm just telling my son only the information, subject only. I am telling this is good, this is bad. You do it whatever you want. I am getting a high demand and high response. So he is demanding me more, like, oh, okay, what is that good thing? What is that? So that's what my experience. So it is not permissive or it is not uninvolved. Where it is coming in between?
It is authoritarian, because you are not just demanding, right? You are available to the child to answer his queries, to satisfy his curiosity and his inquisitiveness, right? So please, again, I repeat, there is a correction. Authoritarian, which is the most effective style of parenting, is this yellow block. We are high both on demand and responsiveness. It's not the child that is responding. We as adults, we are responding to the needs of the child.
Okay, but I'm not giving him any feedback. So I'm just telling him, this is good. You do it whatever you want.
No, Mr. Lakshmi, it's not, this responsiveness is not about giving feedback. This is a different dimension. It simply is to be emotionally available to the child when they need us, to listen to them empathetically, right? And giving them that secure base, like that.
I have two questions. First of all, the title authoritarian, according to me, should be supportive parents. Authoritarian normally comes to a different connotation as far as we know in organization or at home. If I tell you father authoritarian means they impose. So here, that's the other thing is I want to ask you why authoritarian and authoritative are two different things. I don't understand.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll tell you that. So authoritarian, again, because there is a basic correction to be made. Authoritative is a parent who is very high on demand, but he is not emotionally available to the child. So, Mr. Mahapatra, what we use this word authoritarian as is actually authoritative here, imposive.
Probably you can correct this slide because these are all getting imprinted and nothing. If you can correct this and send it in our WhatsApp group, it will be nice.
Otherwise, I will do that.
I get
but I'm not a part of the WhatsApp group. So what I will
you can
do
send to Harsada or somebody.
I'll do that. I'll do that. Positively.
But I have a question. Okay, after Asit.
Yeah, I'm asking you, is it some author has given this different four styles?
Yes. It is Macaulay Martin, M-A-C-O-B by Macaulay, and Martin, M-A-R-T-I-N.
Probably in their country, the authoritarian and authoritative are two different things.
Yeah.
Their first one is basically supportive parent. They're always
first
available
one is supportive. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's called, here it's written authoritarian, which probably doesn't gel. It doesn't go inside my mind.
Correct, correct. So here authoritarian is supportive and authoritative is impulsive, one who is imposing much.
Absolutely. So if you can write in the bracket, authoritative bracket with supportive, as authority is imposing, probably that will clear in.
But I don't think I can do it because it's a picture.
No.
It's not.
No, not here. 2 lines. I will
So
write
when I
them, don't
send,
worry. No.
definitely.
Your picture is not required to be sent. No. In fact, I think we can write ourselves. Why to bother you? So.
No, I'll do it. It's not a big deal. I'll do it certainly. I'll share it with Dr. Harshita and that it can be passed on to him.
Yeah. So ask Abdul, can you kindly ask the question that the screen remain? I will create my own understanding screen. Don't be probably may send, may not send, depending on your time availability.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for your consideration.
Yeah, I have a situation, in my family, right? My wife is like things to be precise. She needs things to be followed. But I'm a guy where I relax with them. They come to support, but we balance it out. At the same time, I don't want to leave my guy completely loose cut, but we play a role play. So I don't know which one we are into it, because at one stage my wife is perfect, correct, but at same time I'm a loose cut. I don't want them to go emotional. I support them there. So what sort of type is this?
It is, depending upon, Abdur, if you are just being supportive to them, but not being, not disciplining them, or not, having a structure in the house, not having certain ground rules in the house where everybody has to abide by, that's an issue.
No, it's the other way. See, I perfectly understand whatever she said is right. Okay. The only way is the way it's said. I don't want them to, because my daughter is very sensitive. Okay, I give respect to her emotion. I'll tell, okay, the same thing I'll tell in a different way they take it. I never tell whatever my wife is wrong. She is, in fact,
of course, you can't do that. Yes,
no,
that's a very sensible thing.
No, the other thing she is correcting, and she wants them to be disciplined. That's something I have to give her respect to that. But at the same time, the tone and the different way of telling, right? I go and play that soft play, but I never stop that.
Yeah,
that's a very mature way of handling a situation.
So may I make an observation, please? You should have good cop, bad cop in the house. Absolutely. So one has to be strict, one has to be liberal. Both can't be strict. That's the way I've seen it with different parents, And this maybe by design, maybe by choice. Because if the girl is really stifled, he has to run to somebody. Otherwise, I'll tell you my example years back when my childhood, she was not eating. My wife after you eat this, that. No, I'm not with you. You can't go to school. Then I tell, don't worry, let her come. Then I'll quietly tell her to eat something and go away. So she got that safety valve or somewhere to ventilate her thoughts. So both people can't be strict, both can't be authoritative kind of thing. No, but it happens, of course, in each family is different. But between both parents, one should be a little more emotionally attached if possible.
Correct, Asif. Exactly, you said what I was meant to say.
Thank you.
I have a clarification I need to sort. I need to seek. Now, with the pandemic, there has been a change of behavior in kids, in children. Okay. And so has happened with my child. He is 7. All right. Now, I'm not a very strict mother as such. Okay. However, discipline, values, everything is in place. Very recently, somebody mentioned to me that spare the rod, spoil the child. I want you to please throw some light in connection with the parenting styles that you've mentioned, because that put me to it actually, I was thinking for the whole night. I mean, do I really need to be that strict to change the behavior, or should I blame it to the environment?
Seema, first of all, the pandemic has been an exception, right? When such situations happen, you actually have to become like, you are an HR person, right? Leadership style. So when that chaotic situations happen, right? Sometimes you have to choose to be a person-centric person, a person-centric leader, right? Now in pandemic, as I said, when the emotions were all-time high, and it was all chaos. Becoming a strict parent, again, from my perspective, people may vary, it would have worsened the situations, isn't it? I firmly believe, Seema, in the concept of weekend parenting. Right. So for 6 days, you have a routine, you want children to be following certain things, but at the 7th day, they're just allowed to be themselves. If they're getting up late, it's just okay. Don't want to study, it's okay. And it's just a 7-year-old. I want to ask you a question, Seema. Do you see your child growing in the manner that you wish him to be?
Yes, of course. And I'm aware of the fact that it's the environment. But when somebody mentioned it to me and not really in connection with my son, so then I was like, maybe I'm getting too lenient with him. I don't know. This question was lingering on my mind, so I did not know. I did not understand. I should ask you here. Maybe
yes,
after the session we could have a discussion.
No, I'll just answer it in one line, and because it would just help everyone. Any emotion is welcome, Seema. Not all behaviors are. I repeat, any emotion is welcome. Not all behaviors are. If you think that the child is misbehaving, you need correction, and hitting is no correction. Hitting is just, it's your venting out your frustration, right? Correction would be communication, connection. We say connection before correction. So if the child is having emotional meltdowns, if the child is throwing tantrums, you got to check what's wrong, right? And you allow that tantrum or that meltdown to settle down, and then you intervene. However, if the child is misbehaving, say raising the voice and being rude, then you need to say that if you really want to talk to me, you have to change the way you're talking. I'm sorry, I will not listen to you unless you become polite and courteous. So the ground rule is very clear, Seema, that if I want to speak to my mother, I need to be courteous and polite. Right. So just now look at whatever is happening, whether it is behavior or it is emotions, and deal with it accordingly. And if still you feel, and I'm not for hitting and spanking, we don't need it. Zarurat hi nahi hoti.
Same here. In fact, I have been told he doesn't treat you like a mother, you're more like a friend to him. I'm like, I would prefer it that way. So
that's okay.
I don't know.
If that's your way of parenting, right? And whatever your ground rules of the child that you want to rear, if that's in place, we all have our opinions. Everybody has their opinion.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
And still, if you feel there is some input required, you can connect with
I'll
me.
Connect with
You're
you.
most welcome. Yeah.
Thank you for that, and thank you for the reassurance.
You're most welcome. Anupama, any question? I can see your hand is raised. Or
yeah. So actually, my question is that when you have 2 kids, right? You feel that their emotional needs are different, right? Like for suppose for same situation, you reacted in a different way for one child, and the same situation you reacted in the different way for the other child. And when they start comparing that, okay, when I did that, when this was with me and you did do like that, how to explain yourself at that moment, because emotions and these things can be a little tricky for a child to understand.
Very
okay,
much.
She's that way,
very much.
She's that way, you are that way, and so how to just deal with that?
So Anupama, we say it in our parent circle that when you have one child, you become a parent. When you have 2, you become a referee.
I agree. I agree.
My empathy, my wholehearted, love and support to you. It's tough. It's very tough because children have become very independent minded. And so what you do, Anupama, in that situation, what psychology tells us and what parenting tells us is that, make sure that you spend exclusive time with both your children, 15-20 minutes a day exclusively with them, with one child
both
at
of
a
them?
time.
Okay,
No.
Separate.
One child at a time, and fill up what is called as their attentional bucket and their power bucket. right? So when you're spending those 15-20 minutes with one and with other, and I'm happy you are very attuned to your child's need, right? And you fill it up one-to-one, right? And when this circus happens later on, you can actually step back, Anupama, and say, sort it out between yourselves. Don't come to me. Sort it out between yourselves. Now that exclusive time that you spend with each of them, they have this assurance that, you know, mama is there. She's available, right? And now that this whole thing is happening, we need to use our tools to solve it. And you tell it that if I intervene, you're going to tell me you're favoring this one, you're doing this and that. Okay. I mean, it's not my business. Just sort it out between the two of you. Okay. And then if it doesn't get sorted, then again, it's time, you know, to become a referee, separate the two players and exclusively one, exclusively two. Let's see, let's experiment with this and then let's see whether it works or it doesn't.
Right. Thank you.
Right?
Thank you so much.
All
Thanks.
right. Finally, psychology of groups and teams. And I think I spoke about this in our previous session when I told you that people have simple needs. They need to be seen, they need to be heard, and need to be valued. And we can fulfill this need by acknowledgement, appreciation, and affection. Right? So as a leader, as a coach, if it's group coaching we are talking about, just apply the constellation model of leadership. See who's good at what and delegate that responsibility to that individual. Leaders have this very brave, beautiful capacity to remain in the foreground and, you know, let the team share and celebrate the win, the victory, and let them enjoy, give them the crowns. What does it take here? Because if you're capable of doing that, clearly means that you're a very secure leader and you also win loyalties that way, right? So the task of a leader is to identify who's good at what, delegate that work to that person, make that person responsible, answerable for the completion of that work, keep reviewing the situation, keep taking and keep monitoring the whole situation, right? And whenever as a leader you feel that things are not in place, things are not on time, you know, just reflect on the strategies. That's what we need to do. So collaboration, communication, acknowledgement, feedback, a pat on the back, you know, is what leadership and group and team handling and management is all about. So I told you, we have an innate need to feel connected. So when we grow up, you know, this becomes a need for belongingness. We need affiliation. We have two identities, okay? We have a personal identity and we have a social identity. My so-called name is my personal identity, but my surname, my religion, my citizenship is my social identity. And so many people, you know, they wear it like a badge, and so, right? So group affiliation, it's an integral function of mental health. We don't want to feel isolated. That's what COVID did to us. Isolation did to us. It deteriorated us emotionally, socially, right? Membership to a particular group, as I said, you know, it gives us a sense of identity. It adds to our existence. And we all know that there is an evolutionary advantage of staying in a group. What teams can accomplish together, individuals can't. No wonder, you know, we from that elusive animal ape, we became a group, and we started living together as bands, as sects, as cults, and so proudly we say, "Na, our community." Like even when we talk about these people on this call, right? We say it's a learners community. So group facilitates, group motivates, and your group can be such a big reason for everybody's development. isn't it? So once we are sensitive to everyone's needs and we hold people responsible for the tasks that they are supposed to do and delegate tasks as per their capacity, we get the best out of people. All right, so that's all about me to you for today. And I'll just put my email ID. It's my name actually, dr.shilpa.suri@gmail. And I look forward to connect with all of you on LinkedIn. And this is my number. I'm based out of Chandigarh. Anytime you feel I could be of any help to any one of you, you're most welcome to tap.